Hey guys, it's Norm from Tested. I'm here at the World Maker Faire in New York 2012, and I'm really excited to talk to Doug North. You're a Kinetic Sculptor. That's a fancy occupation. What is it that you make?
I make what are called contemporary automata. So these are wooden versions of the older style of automata, which were typically clockwork driven.
So robots, basically, what people made as robots 100 years ago.
Right, exactly. Robots, except instead of a computer controlling the memory, it's typically the outside contour of a cam that is the read-only memory, if you will.
Yeah, so it's gears and really complex structures, right? So it's animated, lifelike sculptures.
Mm-hmm. The older ones were incredibly realistic, depicting animals or humans. The more contemporary versions can be very simple, you know, some little whimsical scene like one of mine is just a dog barking at a bird. So, but there are more sophisticated ones that perform elaborate tricks and things.
So back in the day, these were automata. The machines were built for performances and to wow the crowd, like in the movie Hugo, right? The Malaya sculptures. And what is the state of that today? Do we have automata in the world today?
We do. There's only a handful of people that are making them at the level of the finest, level of craftsmanship that was ever done. So it still exists, but at that level, it's something of a very rare art.
And it is an art. It's animation, almost lifelike animation. So how do you design and build an automata? Where do you start off with, and to get to your finished product?
I usually start with sketching and sort of try and flesh out the characters and get some sense for what the motion I want is and perhaps what mechanism it's going to be. But typically, the mechanism I choose initially isn't the one that ends up being the one I use.
And at the end, do you just go overboard in terms of like wanting to add more and more animation to make it more complex, have a more elaborate piece of work?
Yeah, that can happen. That, for instance, with the monster and the strongman piece that I've done recently, it started off as just a monster. Then I added the strongman. Then a whole second scene down below the stage. And
you chose wood. Why wood and not metal for your work?
Well, that's a good question, because metal would have a lot of advantages if you're making a machine. It's a lot more stable, a lot more precise, a lot more durable in a lot of ways. I just have an affinity for wood. I love the material, and I love sort of the feel that it gives. It's less formal, less cold, and you're not really expecting a machine out of wood. So I think there's a certain charm to that.
Wood carving is an age-old process. Are you using any modern tools or techniques to aid your design?
I mean, that would make a lot of sense, and one could use something like SketchUp to flesh out a design before you'd made it. I work on the computer plenty, though, and so this is a way for me to get away from it. So I tend to just draw things out on paper, and then the next stage might be prototyping something in 2D with cardboard. And then I'll go on to using sort of scrap wood, and then finally the finished piece.
A lot of hands-on trial and error, and more tactile building experience.
A lot of trial and error, and a lot of tactile. You've nailed it.
In the world of automata, do people build it out of different materials also, like paper, cardboard, all sorts, not just wood and metal?
Absolutely. There's some guys doing some very sophisticated automata out of only paper. There are people that do it out of metal. There are others that, sculpt heads out of the more modern, like polymer clays, or so it runs a whole gamut of materials. Yeah.
And what's your background? Before you started crafting and making these things?
I've always done a lot of art, but I had some experience with woodworking. I was a sign maker for a brief period of time, so that gave me some fabrication skills. But it's sort of combining my interest in art and an interest in machines, but without really the full capabilities of an engineer.
And for people who want to build their own or just find out more about automata, where's a good place to start, especially for people who want to craft their own, design their own?
There are a lot of good books out there, so you can look those up. If you want to start simply, there are paper kits that you can purchase online or sometimes in book form, and all you need for those are craft, paper, scissors, glue, and you can try making your own, and it'll do something really cool.
And eventually build up to the stuff that you're building. And so what's next for you? Are you bigger pieces, more elaborate? Like, what do you have in store in your workshop?
Yeah, actually, some bigger pieces is something I have in mind. The other thing I would really like to do so far, each piece that I've made has been one of a kind. And I spend a great deal of time designing them and figuring them out. yet there's, enough people out there that would like to own one of their own. So something I really would like to pursue is a limited edition, make a handful of the same one, so I can sort of leverage all that time I spent in figuring it out the first time.
Would that still be with wood, or would you use like a casting process?
No, I'd still do it in wood, but we're talking very small numbers, like 10, for example, instead of just one.
Very cool. And where can people see more of your work?
I have a website, which is dougnorth.com. That's D-U-G, Doug. And I also have a blog called the Automata blog. You can see a lot of people's work there.
Great. So thank you so much, Doug, and your work looks great. Let's take a look at some of Doug's pieces.